Most of them are simply wording or clarity changes, and so absent any questions from the board, I'd like to move to the description of the substantive changes, in other words, ones that actually change the content of the policy. So that's on the middle of page 2 of the staff report. So those sections are section Roman numeral 1E, general travel reimbursement information. The board has indicated in past meetings that they wanted to forego the $25 road inspection stipend that they get. That's actually in state code, and since unfortunately we can't write state code, because if we could, I imagine there'd be a whole lot of things on your agenda. What is written into the policy is the desire to forego that, and then there's a question as to whether or not on the form you fill out every 6 months you would waive that, or whether what's in here is sufficient to just get rid of that $25. So that's a change that's been requested in the past, and the wording is built in now. Moving on down, we reviewed the mileage stipends. Whenever there's a changeover in board members, that would occur. And in the process of looking at that, it was determined that given the overall size of District 5 and the fact that it actually stretches, I believe it is the only district that stretches to both the eastern border of the county as well as the western border of the county. And so the feeling was that it actually needed to match the other coast district stipend. So that was a relatively small change, but it is a change. And then under lodging, given, as has already been referred to, the just increase in the number of assignments that board members are under, committee assignments, and the board meetings. I mean, even if you just take this first month of the year, there's already been one board meeting that was kind of moved onto a Monday and added onto, and I think that's a harbinger of things to come, that you will see more special meetings set up, et cetera. So the way it was worded, it only said regularly scheduled board meetings, and that kind of means what was thought of at the beginning of the year. And so this would expand that to noticed meetings, so that when the board sets a specially noticed meeting, even if it's in a week in which a regularly scheduled meeting doesn't take place, that the lodging would apply in that situation. There's a further consideration about using that to include committee meetings or that are noticed, meaning Brown Act meetings that board members are appointed to. That would take further direction from the board, but at the very least we wanted to talk about noticed meetings to take into account the meetings that have been added. I mean, it is happening more and more. So those are actually the three issues that are would be considered content changes. The rest of it, the wording was left as much as possible the same, but there was some consolidation, and there was also some trying to clarify. So for example, I guess the best example of that was the telecommunications section, where it had previously been kind of lumped together into two categories, but one of the categories had two more options in it. And so, you know, this kind of just divides it out, but it does not in any way change the policy itself. So that's the background. If there is interest in further editing and streamlining of the policy without touching content, you could adopt this as it was with the content changes, and then give further direction to further refine the structure, and that could simply be brought back on consent at some point. So that's the background.
Okay. Any members of the public want to speak on this issue?
John Graff, representing the Employers Council of Mendocino County. I hope you all have our letter in front of us, and in front of you, and I apologize for any typos, or I did use spell check and grammar check, but I did this myself, so it's a little rough. I'm not going to read the whole thing because we have to try to get to Santa Rosa here tonight. But I do want to comment on the fact that it wasn't that long ago where you put the last expenditure policy in place, and it was also a gain. And then I would like to go to the document or the proposal itself, page 1A, when we change that wording and we add ceremonial and official functions, that opens up to more expense. I utilized my second district supervisor quite a bit last year when I was doing functions where I needed an MC, the fireworks and some Rotary functions and whatnot. And although I don't believe that second district supervisor would, at this point, would take advantage of it, I believe that we've been down the path before with our expense policy where clarity of the policy or non-clarity has caused problems. So I would like to see that paragraph tightened up. I believe it's not very good right now. I said page 3B, delete 5th district. I was sitting in the audience waiting for this chance to speak, and I came up with something that I thought was even more important than that. I think that each category should be re-examined because last October, when this last one was approved, gas was over $3.50 a gallon, and currently it's $2 a gallon. So maybe everybody should be looked at as a form of reduction. Page 3B1, I don't remember ever working for a corporation that bought me meals if I needed to eat, and I think whether you're a supervisor or not, you're probably still going to eat, so I don't agree with that one. Page 3C1, I'm concerned about the change to 30 miles because that puts, I believe, maybe as many as 4 of you into a position of overnight stay where you didn't previously get that. I think that the page 5A and B, the telecommunication, should be looked at. 2 reasons. One, you can package it for a lot less than $200 a month now. And then I would have to ask you, how many of you had these functions before you were supervisor and how many will have them after? So what I'm saying is it was probably some of that you would have anyhow. Page 6D2 needs to be eliminated. I don't believe that the county's in the position to be buying you health fitness memberships, and therefore 6D3 should be deleted. And I would say, for the sake of time today, this needs to go back. This policy needs to go back and be tuned and brought back to you later.
John, when you say that I don't need a health membership, I take that as a compliment.
That's correct. That's correct.
Any other members of the public want to speak on this? Supervisor Smith.
I think Supervisor Brown was first.
Okay. Supervisor Brown.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I think we need to move this policy along. I want to go back to Ms. Glassey's 3 general categories. I was the supervisor who brought forward this road inspection issue, I don't know, a year and a half ago or so, saying that we needed to sync basically the code section with the policy, and I think this clarifies that we can't, since it's in the California State Streets and Highways Code, we can't change that. But the idea when we adopted the mileage rates was that it's really redundant and duplicative to have that road inspection. It's a leftover concept from years gone by, and I think that we would do well, and we had talked about actually removing that some time ago, but it just hasn't come to be. So I support that. I think that there's been a review about the 5th district. I think that we should support that. I would want to act on the option category at the bottom of page 3, because as Ms. Glassey stated, and as we're quickly seeing in this year, I think that we need to have a full understanding that the Board of Supervisors obligations and